What's up, everybody? Welcome back to another episode of the Wild Card Podcast. I'm your man, Kendall. I'm here with my man, Khalil. We got a very special guest for y'all today, Mason Smith, ASU alum and writer/reporter for HBCU Legends. We'll get to him right after this.
Mason, what's good, man? What's good?
What's up,
man?
brother?
What's going on, gentlemen? Thank you so much for having me. You guys are the standard now, Alabama State Media. I appreciate y'all help me just join y'all the wild card, man. The wild card.
For sure, bro. You laid the groundwork, man. We just following the lead, bro.
Absolutely.
Kendall, what we started today, man? SWAC Media Day. We weren't in attendance, but Mason was there. Not on our behalf,
Absolutely.
but as an extended hand of ours. So, how are we gonna kick this off, Kendall?
So, I mean, the way that I was thinking about it, we kind of go down the list a little bit. The good, the bad, the ugly, and then we got a little bit of storyline drama afterwards. So, first things first, let's go with the good. I'm going to ask Mason, since you're the guest, what's your first, good thing that you saw at SWAC Media Day?
Honestly, the good thing I saw at SWAC Media Day is the setup. I think one thing that people kind of clamored about on social media is that the setup was very subpar last year, considering how resourceful and prominent the SWAC conference is, especially compared to the MEAC. Now, we'll get to the MEAC later in the show, but one thing I liked, especially attending my very first media day covering the SWAC, they put their best foot forward in trying to step up the layout and the format. I think Radio Row is clean. As you saw on video, the mannequins, all have really nice jerseys. Even the setup where they had the ESPN broadcasters really clean with Tiffany Green and Jay Walker. I think everything kind of just went well. So I really appreciate the SWAC for that. And the jokes can stop. That's the best way I could put it. The jokes can stop. People can kind of get off the SWAC's back. Is there always room for improvement? Absolutely. We should always try to better ourselves. But compared to last year and this year, 2023 SWAC Media Day had a really good look to it.
Kendall, what was your good from it? Your good takeaways?
I think my first one was really just like the kind of the air around everything. It felt like it was a lot more kind of like parody going on. For the first time, Jackson State didn't come in as like the overall favorites. I mean, even in the polls, which we'll get to later on, they weren't first in the polls for the first time in I think 3 years. So, just having that kind of, I mean, just looking on TV, it felt like it was a little bit like different air to it. It was a lot more, competitive conversation, and it kind of felt like at least the SWAC East, it's kind of up for grabs.
So my biggest the good that I take away was ASU. We came in the fresh dress, in my opinion. I just said we did the new ASU suits, that little brand we got. That was hard. We look professional. Last year, people pay attention to the suits and people coming in coordinated. I don't know why Mississippi Valley was wearing blue. The North Carolina blue at that was kind of out the way.
It was hard. It was hard. It was hard though.
It goes hard. We cannot deny that.
Y'all like it?
It was hard. I mean,
but it's not their color.
The colors may not have matched, but it was hard. I don't care.
Okay.
I mean,
maybe I give them a pass.
I mean, if you want to be honest, we've seen people try to be very creative with their colorways on the college and pro level. I mean, y'all remember when the Miami Heat had like that lightning gold jersey? It was like way out the blue, but hey, it still kind of worked. Simply how the way out the blue. That's a pun. But seeing how Mississippi Valley kind of worked in a cobalt blue, it's almost like it's just a unique alternate. Of course, we don't expect any jerseys, but the cherry red helmet they had,
that was hard.
Oh my god,
that was so
beautiful.
Those is beautiful.
But that was beautiful, man. So, but I do agree. Alum State, very clean black suit. You can never go wrong with that. Black and gold is always a very clear, concise color. So, Alum State is definitely up there in terms of their style.
For sure.
I'm not gonna lie though, y'all. I think Southern may be at the top.
Coach Dooley with the Gucci suit.
Oh,
yeah, Dooley came in.
Dooley by himself.
Dooley came in there hot.
Yeah.
Dooley came in there on business.
Definitely. Any other like takeaways as far as in people, players, coaches, y'all were impressed with? Anything along those lines y'all thought were pretty impressive?
I think a good thing that we should talk about now is University of Arkansas Pine Bluff's new head coach Alonzo Hampton. He
I
came with
liked
a
him a lot.
lot. He came with a lot of energy. He came with a lot of positivity. And I talked to him earlier in the spring, not long after he got the job, and he was just ready to get to work. And I think he's kind of kept that same mentality, that same momentum, that same passion throughout the summer, seeing his guys, and now going into fall camp and getting ready for the season. I think it's a lot to like from Arkansas Pound. I know they got picked last. We understand that. Arkansas Pound's always been very hot and cold. If you ever go back and look at their history, just sometimes they're the best in the SWAC and they're the standard. And other times they're clearly at the bottom. But I think Alonzo Hedge is going to start, a new trend for them. And I like the talent that they have this coming year.
Kendall, you mentioned him too. What were you impressed with him?
I mean, like Mason just said, the energy. I think as coming in and for a coach in his position, you're trying to change the culture. You're trying to invoke like a winning culture. In order to do that, I mean, you have to have that persona of, we want to get to work, and understanding that it's kind of going to be a little bit of a process. Like, I don't think he said he was like, we're going to change the game or whatever at his first season. I think he's very understanding of the position he's in, and it's more so of we want to improve as best we can. Because like Mason said, they can be very hot and cold. Whenever you play UAPB, you never know what team you're going to get. So I feel like to me, what I really want to see from him and what I think I got from what he was talking about was, you're going to see more consistency. And that's what I really want to see from UAPB. Because I like their squad, as far as, the talent that they have.
And they beat us for the last game of the season. Not the point, though. But I think that it's easy to get caught up in the new freshness of having a really good head coach. We're having an energetic head coach, having a new voice in the building. But it's all about what you do on the field. How seeing the change. We can go get anybody to be a great marketer. Bring all the we're gonna change this, we're gonna change that. It's like getting a new president. How many things do presidents actually invocally change as soon as they hop in office? So that's how I'm looking at it. I need to see on the field, week one. I mean, obviously he can't prove what his vision is yet, but he crossed one thing off the list, and that's being a good marketer and good, statesman for change.
Well, let's keep this in mind too when we talk about head coaches. Deion Sanders, as we know, is an anomaly. A lot of former players that become coaches are now in terms of not working their way up through the ranks. Not saying that's a good or a bad thing, but Alonzo Hedge is very vetted. He spent time at ULM that played Alabama last year. So he's seen like what the cream of the crop of college football looks like. He spent time at USF. And for those who don't know, his very first collegiate coaching job was at Arkansas Pine Bluff. So he cut his teeth in Arkansas being able to get the job done. And that means a lot when you think about it at the end of the day. He's vetted. Like he's actually tested the waters on all levels of college football. That allows to be more prepared and actually see, hey, this is what it looks like. And keep in mind, it's a first-year head coach. When a team is as bad as Mississippi Valley State or Arkansas Pine Bluff, at the end of the day, you're not worried about the most complicated passing attacks. You're not trying to open up the entire playbook. Execute the offense, execute the defense, get downfield, field goals, touchdowns, defensive stops. You're trying to keep it simple. And then as a team, understand your concepts. Then you get a little flash, a little complicated. Make it Alonzo Hanson's team. But the best part about a new coach developing something is just being sure to set the foundation of good quality football.
Definitely.
And kind of going on top of that, I think one of the things, and this is for all the new coaches. I think one of the things that really stuck out to me was the players that were there. They really seemed like they bought into what their coaches were saying. I think an important thing about having a new coach, obviously, is getting your players behind him. Obviously, and we've seen it on a more national stage with Deion in Colorado, but it happens everywhere when new coaches come in. You bring in new players. There's a lot of turnover, all of that type of stuff. I think once you have, and a couple of them mentioned it, once you have guys that really buy into what you're selling, buy into the system, buy into the process, I think then that's when you can get that change and it can happen a little bit quicker. So I was really happy with that too.
So would you say it's similar to Coach Robinson from last year? I mean, aside from the fact that, you mentioned he had previous head coaching experience. Was it the same kind of energy, the same kind of vibe? I'm here to make a change type thing. Was that the energy in the room, Mason?
Yeah, honestly, I think it was a matter of fact of just loving the game itself that starts. And I know that's kind of a cliche thing to say, but there are a lot of people, who don't really like football. Like when we think about it, we kind of see how people are just not really fans of the get your hands dirty, really get down. Matter of fact, I know there's a clip that was circulating on Twitter. I'm not sure if you guys have seen it yet, where Alonzo Hector was captured covering, talking to his team after a practice, and he was telling them like, "Hey, we were picked last, but I like that. I embraced that, and you guys need to embrace it too." And he was speaking so passionately and loving the fire that he wanted to instill in his team from himself. Because that's what you're going to need when you're kind of building from the ground up. I think that's a really positive thing. Now, to clarify, he was the defensive coordinator at ULM. I don't think he's ever had – this is his first head coaching job. We'll make sure, we clear out for the fans. But, when you have experience at all levels of college football and you're already a Pine Bluff, alum in some way because you started your coaching career there, I think there was some value to that. And he's an Arkansas native. So there's always a value of seeing how, your home state team does. Like, we always want to see – the flagship institutions always do well. Like if you're from Arkansas, it's probably the Razorbacks. If you're from Alabama, it's probably, the Crimson Tide. If you're from Georgia, it's the Bulldogs. But, when you want to see your other school do well, including Arkansas, Pine Bluff, if you're Arkansas native, there's probably that little bit added energy to see that team succeed. And now he has even more motivation to see it as he's leading the program.
That kind of gives me the vibe of, y'all remember that when Dan Campbell first took the job in Detroit, and the interview was like, "Hey, we're gonna bite their ears off. We're not gonna." I think that's what Arkansas Pine Bluff is going. What Pine Bluff is gonna be this year. They're gonna be, talent wise, because he got in a little bit later, so it's not the recruiting isn't gonna be up to where I'm sure he would like it to be, but the energy, making the most of what you have within there, the motivational factor, because play on the field matters. But do your players want to play for you? If he can get those players to want to play for him and get them rally behind him, the way Dion did with Jackson State, the way I would even say Coach Maynard does at A&M, because people fall behind those guys. There are certain people, certain figures that just can motivate you, can just, okay, I don't know this dude well enough yet, but I'm with him. I'm fired. I'll die for him. Y'all know what I mean when I set up.
No, I'm definitely with you, and I know this is not a go ahead, Kendall. You got it.
Oh, I mean, no, I was just gonna agree with you. Yeah, I think having those players, like I said before, having those players, follow behind that coach is really important because, I mean, you got to think about it, especially with football. You go on to war every week, and it's one of those things where you got to have guys that's willing to sacrifice. You got to have guys that may not get the touches, may not get the balls that they want, and they have to understand that there's a greater reason for that. And that, this is a team game. This is a team.
It's all about buying
effort. Yeah. So this is a team effort. So you really got to buy into the team, which I feel like, those guys are doing. And I feel like as far as everything that I saw from all, what was it, four new coaches? From Jackson State, T.C. Taylor, Alonzo Hampton, Kendrick Wade, and Ramon Woody. Yeah, all four of them, I feel like they really kind of put themselves out there as, all right, this is the plan, and I'm going to have these guys rally behind me. And once you do that, I feel like, sky's the limit for your program.
And you can win games just off motivation. When we talk about, and we love ASU, love it, Mason, you're an alum, but you can catch ASU slipping sometimes because we play down. So you're going to catch teams that play to the level of the competition, and you can get got.
You can always get got. And it was kind of funny because I know we're on Twitter space last night saying that ASU might get got because they feel like Mississippi Valley, to kind of, probably provide a segue. They said Mississippi Valley is really going to step up this year. And I believe it, honestly. Now, I ain't going to go as far as they're going to catch Alabama State slipping. Maybe there's a little bit of personal bias there. But even speaking as an unbiased, media professional, just like you guys are, or up-and-coming media professionals, Mississippi Valley's made a lot of great moves, especially in the transfer portal. For those who don't know, Aaron Webb transfer from UT Martin, the defensive back. He's been really proud Mississippi Valley transfer. Valley in motion. That's the hashtag, Valley in motion, Valley in motion. And Jamari Jones, who's the quarterback, he's excited to kind of get to the program. And, the defensive player, I can't remember his name off the top of my head. They're both ready to just kind of get rolling in Mississippi Valley and Itabena. So I like what they're doing down there in Valley. Kendrick Wade, he's like a good head on the shoulders. He's different from Alonzo Hampton. He's very much a, more cerebral, very much – just about the business, understanding like he's not probably going to yell. He's not, in just a public PR kind of setting. He's very much, very mellow or melancholy as people may want to describe it. But I'm pretty sure it doesn't matter how you talk to the media. You can talk to the media as calm as you want. But once you step inside those lines, it's probably a whole different animal for everybody that includes the coach. So I'm excited to see what Mississippi Valley does getting ready for 2023.
Yeah, for sure. So do y'all have any other good y'all want to take away if we transition to the bad? Because the bad might take a minute.
I don't know, man. I feel like
You want to come back to it?
because some of mine may be storylines, so I want to save those storylines.
Okay,
so
okay.
We can go to transition. You know, a lot of ASU stuff we consider storyline, but you know, there's lots of good from ASU. I think they're going to be poised to make another step. I know we're going to talk about that later, but I think ASU is going to be okay.
Okay,
we can go to the bad then.
Let's transition to the bad. First thing I want to talk about is this. ESPN's presentation was one thing. You know, we talked about ASU with Kendall. You were really bothered by the misspelling of Cale Jackson, our DB, who made the all-SWAC second team. Things like that with ESPN,
You've grown to expect. You just kind of grown to expect though.
You've grown to expect it, but you're the worldwide leader in sports. You know what I'm saying? All sports, not just professional, Power 5, but you have to make those improvements and know that kind of stuff.
Yeah, my biggest thing with that one was what you're saying, at least at the moment right now, that's one of the top however many players in the SWAC. I mean, that's basically what those two lists mean. So that's somebody that you should be able to spell his name correctly. I mean, his first name is only 4 letters. So I mean, you should be able to spell his name correctly. So that kind of pissed me off a little bit. I think overall, I love the presentation. I love everything about the ESPN presentation. I did. Another thing that kind of got me a little bit off was the music. Sometimes when the players were talking or whatever, or the coaches, the music was a little too, like the volume was a little too high.
It was too overlay.
So yeah, it was kind of drowning them out a little bit. Obviously that's kind of a nitpick, but at the same time, you know, you want this to be as a professional of a production as it can be. So that was another thing that kind of caught me off about the ESPN presentation. But besides that, I did enjoy the ESPN presentation.
I think one bad thing, I wouldn't say it's all the way bad. At Media Day, when people came off the stage, there was a room to the right of the stage where teams that just got off go in there for press conference, basically with the rest of the media, you know, other journalists and things like that. I didn't know about that because, of course, for those who have never been to Media Day, more often than not, you're kind of just going around to each table, talking to players, talking to coaches. That press conference was actually a really, really good setup, and I enjoyed it once I found out about it. But I had no idea. Matter of fact, a guy that was at MC, you know, just announcing the players and coaches that would be speaking, he agreed with me, saying it was a very poor, you know, communication to say, hey, look, you know, when it comes to the overlay of music, you know, the main stage talking and everything else kind of going just a hustle and bustle of a working environment, it will be easy going to go to a closed off section to ask all the questions that you want. And keep in mind, if we're enjoying the growth of HBCU media, it's still not that many. It's still not that many of us that consistently cover it. So you'll be able to enjoy asking all the questions that you want, because I was able to do that for Jackson State and Florida A&M. Those are the two teams I caught. So it was really nice, but they need to make sure they communicate all the advantages of a media day. If there's something that you want us to know, make sure you tell us that. We should not have to find out something halfway through the day and now we can't maximize its potential.
Another thing that bothered me was the SWAC presentation. And that's always been, you know, Kendall, we talked about this last episode with the presentation of games, that kind of stuff. I'm watching, you know, for the people who can't, because there are people out there who didn't want to pay for the ESPN Plus. I was one of those people, so I used somebody else's account. Why? And we should be able to get still good quality if we're going to watch the SWAC portion of it. But the sound, you know what I'm saying, the microphones weren't working. You were having a different conversation going on the opposite side of the set while a player is getting interviewed. The camera cut, whoever was the producer of it and that was cutting the cameras, different things were happening at different times, and it just made for unprofessional. That's the biggest thing. You guys are professionals. You have to have people in these positions that know, you know, how to run that, because it feels like you're just, as I always say, checking off the list. You're not actually trying to put your best foot forward.
Yeah, and I thought I don't obviously since we were there last year, I don't really remember exactly what the SWAC the YouTube stream looked like. But one of the things I did like was that they did have those off to the side kind of interviews because those were things that you weren't getting on the main stage. So I like that part, but it was just the way that it was done. It could have been done better. It could have looked better because for some of them, like you could tell some of the players they didn't even know exactly where to look at because you don't know if they. I guess at least that's what it looked like. You can't tell where the camera is. You can't tell if the camera's on you at the time of your interview or not. Like it just felt kind of weird to me. It could have been done better. Could have been executed better.
When you're growing your digital presence as a conference, those are the kinds of things that are still not good, but you are also having to prepare for. And, you know, when you talk to any commissioner or any matter of fact, any communications person for a conference, they say, okay, what are some notes that you have? What are some things that we could do better? Like these are things that are going to help, you know, the presentation grow. Because what's worse than having something not go well on the digital network side for the SWAC? Not knowing it didn't go well and you're doomed to repeat the same thing next year. So I think it's really important that, you know, when we talk to people like, oh yeah, you know, thank you for telling us. We're already talking about that. We get a meeting set up. We'll be sure to be better. And not to mention, you know, we all, you know, kind of support the SWAC in addition, because, you know, it's the SWAC stands the big picture of Alabama State. But we got to see how the digital platform grows as we're becoming more and more prevalent in it. Before it was kind of just, okay, you get a video, maybe you kind of just rely on everybody else to do what they need to do. But then now the SWAC is taking more of a personal approach to make sure their content is good. When you're a small conference, you got to make sure your stuff is good. Because some days you may not have any outside media outlets come. Some days you may not have any, you know, other video besides your own video in-house.
That was something I was worried about this year. I wasn't even aware that ESPN was coming prior to we did our episode last week. People let us know because, you know, the following of Jackson State. Once Dion left, I was okay. We go to SWAC Media Day. It's not going to be that many people there. Heck, they might even change rooms because it wasn't always in that hotel area right there. It was a smaller room in past years, according to people that we know. So, you know, like you said, you have to think about the fact that you may not always have all these bigger media outlets coming there. So, yeah.
Dion, man. Excuse me, I gotta plug in my laptop. It's about to die. But
you good? Hey, take your time.
But no, I think that's probably one important thing too. We talked about this, or we may have not talked about it after we were setting up for today. I interviewed Dr. Charles McClellan, and maybe I can send that video to you guys later if you want it. He talked about how that this was the most media that attended a media day ever. Like he said, in the history of the SWAC Media Day, the most outlets came yesterday or a couple of days ago for that. So I think that's probably a good sign. You know, if Dion was not there, and people know Dion not there, it's not like, you know, Dion left the day before, like Kamari Stevens did. But it's still important to see how. I know you're speaking Canada. I know you got that joke, but it's important. It's important to see how the SWAC coverage is still growing, and the MEAC coverage is growing, honestly. So especially when you don't have the high profile coaches that people think you should have. So I think it's a good sign for the SWAC.
So speaking of the MEAC, I'm gonna skip over the ugly candle and go to the. So Mason, you had an opportunity to go to both the SWAC Media Day and the MEAC Media Day, and there were people that were saying there were vast differences, and we were talking about the presentation with the MEAC may have been better, and the MEAC just has different kind of feel in this way. What was your takeaway from it? Kendall, I don't know about you. I didn't watch the SWAC Media Day, but what was your
MEAC Media Day?
Yeah. MEAC Media Day. I'm sorry. What was your takeaway from it, Mason?
MEAC Media Day. So Media Day was kind of interesting for me. You know, flight got delayed. I got there a little late, but that's aside the point. There were some things that are head and shoulders better than the SWAC. I'm gonna be honest with you, and there are some things that were honestly nowhere near the SWAC. Like it was a very interesting kind of hot and cold comparison. Of course, me taking it in, that was my first media day as a professional. You know, I kind of got on the football beat of my last job late, so I didn't go to media days. Seeing the MEAC Media Day, the presentation that everybody's talking about on ESPN with Tiffany Green and Jay Walker, clean, pristine, looked fantastic. The big, you know, screens and behind them, the stage, it looked amazing. Way better than the SWAC stage looked. No, I'll give them credit for that. the workroom or the place where the tables were that we always talk about, it was a much smaller room than the SWAC has. Now, granted, let's remember the MEAC only has 6 football playing programs in their conference right now. So you don't really need that big of a room. But the challenge became, I think more media came to the MEAC Media Day than they expected. So now you have a room that's a little bit crowded and it's a little bit hectic because you have your radio and broadcast people trying to get their stuff done on top of the digital and print guys like myself trying to get their interviews in at the same time. To kind of give you an idea, imagine kind of just a square, because obviously it's just like a giant rectangle. You had HBCU Plus in a corner that was a really big setup that took up a lot of space, and you had another radio show, Black College Sports Network, in another corner that took up a lot of space. You had HBCU Go, had a step and repeat that took up a lot of space, and then you had the Blue Buzz, which covers FCS overall. They just set up behind the camera, and they set up like an unofficial media rotation between those 4 outlets, not as a way of prioritizing them, but just knowing that when it comes to radio, it's a little bit different. You got to get the headphones set up and all that kind of stuff. So in the midst of all of that and the rotation that's going on there, we're all trying to just grab players and grab coaches, when we can. It kind of made for a little chaotic. And on top of that, you only had scheduled an hour to kind of get all of the interviews in. So imagine all the media trying to get all their interviews or as many interviews as they can with certain teams, and only have 60 minutes to do so. Now, when I got there, I was told they started a little bit earlier because they saw how many media members they had. They're like, oh my goodness, we're setting ourselves up for a disaster if we don't start this a little bit early. So they did. I think, they avoided some of that. But I think the SWAC, even though the presentation itself may not have been as glamorous in some ways as the MEAC, I think it's a little bit better ran. But that's probably because you're used to such a larger following.
Mm-hmm.
The SWAC is the most prominent HBCU conference, not me emotionally saying that or any of us, saying that with the passion or drive because we're, SWAC alums or SWAC students. It's because it's been like that, for the longest between the institutions and the bands that have, participated in the SWAC. So now the MEAC is starting to grow and catch up in its own way. And now it's their turn to kind of get back to the drawing board, evaluate itself, and prepare better for the media outlets that may come in 2024.
I think that's one of the things that I really wish that we as HBCU sports would do a lot better of. I'd rather over prepare than under prepare. I feel like we under prepare a lot, and then when things like that happen, like on the day, we get surprised, and then now it's like, all right, the presentation is going to be lacking, or the media attention is going to be lacking because we didn't know this many media was going to show up. I feel like it does your product a disservice. It does everything that you've done up until that point a disservice if you don't prepare for the worst or prepare for more, whatever the criteria is. So I just feel like we need to do a better job as a whole, SWAC, MEAC, whatever, as a whole, of just preparing for these type of things better. So that way, because you only get one media day. You can't redo this. You can't, okay, let's try this again next week or something like that. You can't get it back. So I just feel like I would rather over prepare than under prepare.
But so Mason,
my bad.
You good? Would you say MEAC, which one was better to you overall? If you had to just pick one.
Overall, I probably have to go with the SWAC. SWAC, because when it comes to you got to think about it. The SWAC is one that is actually made for media. Like, it's not made really for fans. Like, that's the digital part. Fans ain't supposed to attend media day anyway. It's supposed to be for media. That's why it's called media day. So when you look at it in that regard, you see it's for us, and not only for lack of a better term, our enjoyment. Because we enjoy talking to players and coaches. We enjoy the atmosphere. We enjoy the idea that football is coming back. But you maximize that enjoyment because I apologize. Somebody's working on the roof. I just saw them walk by the window. But as you see that, it's really impressive to see how they set up. They had a room dedicated for digital. They had rows and rows of tables where people can sit down and type up their stories. They had an entire room dedicated just to the radio and broadcast people. Now, granted, there was way more radio and broadcast people at the SWAC than it was at the MEAC. So you have to keep in mind, the idea of cost, expenditures. Maybe you don't need to spend a lot. If you don't need a budget for 100 media members if only 50 gonna come. But then you also got to be mindful if you can't, budget for 50 and 75 come. Now you're kind of like playing catch up. And to Kendall's point, I'd rather you over prepare for more and not have as much than prepare for less and have way more. Because now you're gonna get concerns and critiques like this. So the board though, the desk at the MEAC, it's here. They slaughtered this.
We just went with a digital board this year for the first time ever, if I'm not mistaken.
I think so. Like, people were talking about the banner last year. People were posting that banner from the SWAC Media Day in 2022 all over because, like, we better not have this again. They didn't have it again, but it still didn't compare. But every other aspect of the SWAC Media Day, I kind of enjoyed more than the MEAC. I kind of did. I feel like I was a little bit, more prepared, maybe because they're more used to it. Let's see what the MEAC does now that they've kind of seen firsthand. Okay, we have more coverage now. They now have that knowledge. I think there's some credence or leeway to consider when you don't know what you don't know. Like, if you really haven't had that much media before, and you get it this year, now you get to prepare for it properly. Now, I think that's something that Sonia Stills, Jeff Cunningham, the communications guy of the MEAC, I think they're going to make sure it's going to be way more organized and way better, way more efficient. That's what I'm looking for. It's going to be more efficient next year for the MEAC, but I give the crown to the SWAC.
So let's transition to the ugly. Y'all got anything else y'all want to say about SWAC versus MEAC? Well, actually, should we talk about what SWAC commissioner said about the Celebration Bowl? Is that in this, or are we saving that for storylines? Because it could be a little bit of both.
Yeah, I'm gonna be honest. I might refrain just to make sure we can keep a good relationship. We do not have time for getting a call saying, "Hey, where my media credential at?"
Yeah.
Unfortunately, due to some comments that you
Yeah.
No, matter of fact, let's just say it now though, because SWAC versus MEAC, the Celebration Bowl is included in that, and the MEAC SWAC Challenge is also included in that. Let's be honest; those are two games where it's purposely and intentionally promoted to be a battle between the two Division I HBCU conferences. I think the comments, they might be alarming in some ways. It may be a concern.
He was speaking his truth, though. He was speaking his truth, though.
He was speaking. Yeah, he was speaking his truth. His truth.
Yeah.
Yeah, because again, Twitter space, other media professionals that kind of follow and cover HBCU ball, they was like, we do not support or associate the comments of our commissioner. But I think it was very, very interesting comments to try to for lack of a better term, devalue the Celebration Bowl. I do understand that the SWAC championship brings a lot, and it's gonna grow as the conference grows, and that's great. MEAC doesn't have a championship. Why would you need a championship if you play everybody though? That's kind of an unnecessary addition. If you think about it. No, and I know that there's talk from Howard's coach Larry Scott. There should be one because of the IBCU, but they beat them, and the math. No, if you play everybody in your conference schedule, you really don't need a championship game. You've proven everything you need to prove then. But when it comes to the SWAC championship being more than the Celebration Bowl, no, because you're essentially saying my conference championship is better than the national championship. Now, maybe that's the case. Maybe in a business aspect, in terms of revenue and exposure and things like that, maybe that might be better. Maybe it's cool. But remember, as a football player, as a football coach, would you rather say I'm the best in this conference or I'm the best in the nation? Like that's really what it comes down to when it comes to which is kind of more important, at least for a player and coach perspective.
And let's use an actual example. The whole Deion situation. He never won a
Celebration Bowl.
Celebration Bowl. I mean, me personally, I think as a coach in his shoes, as a competitor, that's something that I would want to win. I don't never want it to be a situation where people look at me and say, "Oh, well, you didn't win the Celebration Bowl. Like you were this, you were that, you were everything in the SWAC, but once you came up against the MEAC, you couldn't beat them."
And that probably can add fuel to the fire because it's also a narrative. We maybe could touch on it more in storylines that the MEAC is just better than the SWAC on the field. Like the MEAC just plays better football than the SWAC. Well, you can kind of have that argument when you consider how the MEAC has won majority of Celebration Bowls. Now, I think there is an asterisk next to that because a lot of those early on were won by North Carolina A&T, who eventually left the MEAC to go to another conference and then another conference after that. But I think there's going to be a point of emphasis to say, hey, we want to make sure the national championship is still important to us, just like our conference championship.
So
Clay,
I
what was
think
you gonna say?
that's gonna end up being one of the things that people want us to make a kind of we've had a conversation about them joining to make a mega conference, a mega HBCU conference, which looks great. It really does. But when you talk about them having differing postseason plays, the MEAC not having a conference championship, they just jump straight to the Celebration Bowl. Us going through the gauntlet of okay, we got this long regular season, and then we go to the SWAC championship, and then maybe a week or two later, we have the Celebration Bowl. You can make the argument that the MEAC has the upper hand because they're not playing a conference championship, so your players are more fresh, they're healthier. With the SWAC, you may be beat up, you got injuries, whatever the case may be. That's going to be one of the things that holds them back from ever collaborating to make that mega conference a thing. Because I do think that a mega conference, I know that's not what we're talking about here, but I think that's ultimately what people want to see as far as, okay, y'all so separate, but y'all are really significant, powerful HBCUs. And if you just come together, you can make a great product. You got what the SWAC has 12 teams in total?
SWAC has 12, MEAC has 6.
18 teams. How many teams in the SEC?
14, I think. No, either 12 or 14.
I think that if we were to come to a thing of, instead of playing a Celebration Bowl, okay, let's take maybe the top 2 teams from each division in the SWAC and the top 2 teams from the MEAC. Let's do a college football play. Let's do a HBCU playoff.
Final four.
That's the
point. Something like that.
There's been talks about that too, at least informally. I won't say any commissioner or any official person said that, but that might be the goal. Down the line, I think it might be cool. Let's keep this in mind when we talk about scheduling. Bayou Classic is very late in the year. It's always it always culminates the season. That is why SWAC schools and MEAC schools are not eligible for the FCS playoff. Because if y'all paying attention last year, I think years prior too, Celebration Bowl is the same weekend as when the FCS playoffs start. So and the champions from each HBCU conference are contractually obligated to go to the Celebration Bowl. You do not want to see 2 second place teams, which is fair. So, and there's been talk about that. The only way the schedule will work to do anything we're talking about, is some way, somehow, the SWAC football season has to end a little bit sooner, because with the Bayou Classic being late, like we saw last year, with the Bayou Classic being late and Southern being a contender for the SWAC, that game had to happen to count. And then after that, you had the SWAC championship game. That game also had to count. So even if Southern was good enough to make it to the FCS playoff, which maybe not, I think their record wasn't that, wasn't beneficial.
Same as ours, 6-5.
Yeah, they would have already been, barely 500 team. Even if that was the case, like let's say they were only a 1-loss team. They were only a 1-loss team and lost to Jackson State. You're already knocking yourself out because the season already finishes too late to qualify for the FCS playoff. That's why when FAMU made it as a second place team, or just not the first team, because you're eligible to do that then. And that's why. But I know that's a whole rabbit hole and a whole bunch of stuff we can get into later. So I ain't trying to.
And the argument about going to the FCS playoffs is it's pay to play. Mm-hmm. Like you have to pay to go play in that thing. It's not just okay, you qualified, you're in. You know what I'm saying? FAMU was one. I believe they had the aspirations of playing in it last year. I think Coach Simmons wanted to play in it. But what's the point? Why would I use all of my budget, my money games? And if you notice this year, ASU didn't schedule no money games. I think there are a couple of SWAC schools that went that route. Do you think that they end up making more money off of a HBCU playoff as opposed to, okay, let's take these money games. Let's stop doing the money games and stop playing these big Power 5 programs, and let's base our revenue on potentially playing in an HBCU playoff, because the revenue is going to be great, whatever the case may be.
I think it will be, but then you run into the issue of competition, and we know competition is such a buzzword when it comes to professional prospects.
Yeah,
let's be honest. We all know this is Alabama State, supporters. When Titus Howard got drafted in 2019 or 2018, I believe, what was the only clip they showed when he got drafted? So you got to play competition outside the conference, at least for right now, because they they just value HBCU ball so poorly, and it's a terrible thing to see. And I don't support that. I think that's wrong. I'll be saying out there right now. But at least in terms of getting guys to the league, guys that deserve to be in the league, or at least deserve a shot, you gotta have upper level FCS competition. You gotta have FBS competition, which is why I'm excited that Alabama A&M is playing Vanderbilt. Like, am I nervous for that game? I am. But let's keep in mind, Vanderbilt is at the bottom.
You could win. You could make it better.
Vanderbilt at the bottom of the SEC. And I understand SEC ball, like it's up there. It's head and shoulders above, college football overall. But when you get to the bottom of that league, the SECs, the Missouris, teams can get got. Like let's be honest. Like I understand they don't get got in football as compared to other sports because SWAC Pac-12 challenge. Shout out to the SWAC for winning that in basketball. But teams can get got in football, especially in the upper echelon of a particular group of five or, low D1A school, low D1 2A school. I know it's the old name for it. Now FCS. I'm excited for that because if Donovan England is really that guy at running back, he'll have a chance to show it at Vanderbilt. In Vanderbilt, oh my goodness, you could talk all crazy that you want. Like Vanderbilt's not good. I'm talking about national media pundits. Oh, Vanderbilt's not that good because of the SEC. But I know for a fact, if we go check the betting odds now, it's probably a 15, 20 point spread or more for that game. If we go check it. So what if Alabama makes that game close? What if it's only a field goal difference?
You saw what FAMU did with North Carolina last year. It was a competitive game.
They were missing players. They were missing. Like if FAMU had their entire roster
full strength, it would have been scary.
It would have been bad. Sure. And I like Drake May. Drake May. He's a pretty solid quarterback prospect coming out of North Carolina. They might have won that game because the defense. I don't think because Isaiah Land didn't play in that game, right? I don't think Isaiah Land.
No,
we're talking Khalil, about that's something that we was talking about last episode too. Like guys get up for those games. We talk. I mean, even if you're looking at Bama State season last year, we talk about Levante Chanel. He got up for that game. Jeremiah Hickson, he got up for that game. Like these guys, when you get to show yourself against, other D1 competition, which people see as head and shoulders above you, it makes a difference.
Yeah,
it makes a big difference. And we also talked about, promotion of the game. You got a lot of people that see HBCUs that take them as, all right, this is basically a JUCO for me. I'm gonna ball out for 2 years and I'm gonna transfer somewhere else. Especially with so many players going into the transfer portal now. HBCUs can be seen as hubs for, all right, we play a money game. We play a couple of money games a season. I ball out there. All right, now I got film to show this coach or that coach. Now we can do something.
It's also the NIL thing, but NIL is
crazy. NIL is killing HBCUs now. I'm telling you.
It's really kind of killing everybody if you think about it. Because like kind of going back to basketball, if you follow college basketball, Hunter Dickinson from Michigan, one of their best players last year, transferred out because he wasn't getting enough money and went to Kansas. But you went from a Power 5 program who's respecting in college basketball to another Power 5 program that's respecting in college basketball. So if you would have put up the same numbers at Michigan that you would at Kansas, you would still be respected and have your draft out the professional odds the same. Like I think Alonzo Hinton, hate to bring him back up because we just spent a whole segment talking about him. He said something very powerful. If you're playing for the money, like NIL, if you're playing for that money at college football, you're not really playing for football. And that's ultimately going to be your downfall at the end of the day. If you really think about it, if you go because you want the money, cool. And I don't even like talking about that because at the end of the day, remember, a lot of these kids may come from, a rough upbringing. That money could really be used to do some good things for themselves, their families, and their communities. So I will never trip on anybody taking the money. But if your goal is about football, if your goal is about maximizing your potential on the field and doing great things, the money's not going to get you there. You can't pay your way to get to NFL.
No,
you can't do that. So eventually, going to find out how well you play, and that's why we see it. Guys may not get drafted for whatever reasons, but it was a multitude of MEAC and SWAC football players that got signed immediately after the draft over. All we saw down our timeline: Aubrey Miller, Keenan Isaac, Isaiah Land,
Xavier Smith,
Mark Evans. Like all these guys got immediately signed, and now they're on UDFAs, and now they sign contracts. All because they know what the deal is. But then there's a whole, premise and narrative when it comes to HBCU ball. That's a whole rabbit hole we can get down. I'm gonna shut up about it because I ain't trying to talk about that all day. I'm gonna get my blood pressure up.
Yeah.
No, it's a lot to look forward to when it comes to SWAC Media ball. I think they're going to continue to grow the brand. And they keep playing these games. I had that Alabama A&M Vanderbilt game circled on my calendar. I want to watch that. I have North Carolina Central and UCLA circled on my calendar. I want to watch that because Davius Rich is supposed to be a very he's a top prospect at least on the FCS side. He's one of the top prospects on the FCS side and maybe one of the first FCS quarterbacks you drafted in like at least 3 to 4 years, if not more. So yeah.
All right, so let's transition. We talked about Ugly already, right? Have we or no? We haven't yet.
Nah, we really didn't. I mean,
I don't really have too much.
Yeah, I was about to say, unless y'all really don't like somebody's style, I don't know if we got any ugly ones.
Nah.
Any ugly?
I mean, I think it was all in the bag, kind of, to be honest with you.
No, I think, there was nothing really ugly about it. Like, everything was kind of fine. You know, if you want to talk about the comments, y'all can talk about the comments of the commissioner. I ain't even say nothing. That's gonna be on y'all.
I think even even during this segment, I think we talked about it a little bit. So I mean, I that was pretty much.
Hey, we got credentials to get, man. We got credentials to get.
Yeah, I mean, it wasn't going to be nothing crazy anyway.
Yeah,
I'm about to say, man. You know, if Alum is went to Celebration Bowl and is like, due to your comments, the wild card will not be allowed.
Oh no, he the one that usually had the controversial comments. I'll be chilling. So
I'm chilling. I'm cool. So
yeah.
That being said, let's transition to these storylines. What were things that Mason? You were there. What were storylines you went in expecting? What were some that you left? You left out with. And did you have any questions answered? I'm sorry. Go ahead.
But one thing I came in to media day with Jackson State, I know it's kind of low, a low ball thing. It's the idea of chemistry. You know, I'm not gonna talk about them being good or bad. It's just the chemistry. You have 60 to 70 new guys. So if you do that, you got to maximize the chemistry when it comes to, just making sure like those guys gel together and are able to do their job, the best that they can. He did answer that, and TC Taylor said at media day, without chemistry, there's nothing. So hopefully, it's just an idea that we just make sure that we get the job done. And I think they're gonna do that, to the best of their ability.
Kendall, do you have any?
Kind of going on to what Mason said. As far as the parity, I kind of touched on it with the good already. But the parity, Jackson State isn't seen as this powerhouse of a school anymore, like this unbeatable monster. And I think that's good because it makes it more interesting. I think Jackson State did a great job of holding it down to the point where it was pretty tough. It was a pretty tough game to beat them for sure. And now I feel like, you have FAMU there, you have us there, you still have Jackson State in the mix. I'm not disrespecting their team at all. And TC Taylor seems like he's going to be a pretty good coach as well. But also, the SWAC West too. I mean, one of the biggest things for me that stood out was, okay, you have the Southern and the Alcorn states, but you also have Texas Southern, who people are talking about Andrew Body, and they're putting a lot of stock into him. So I think, it feels like, it's up for grabs right now. And you also have the lower teams, the Arkansas Pine Bluffs, the Bethune-Cookmans and the Mississippi Valleys. They're always game to knock somebody off. And they even said, it was a couple of their players that said, we don't go into those games saying, all right, we trying to knock off this team, mess up their playoff opportunities or whatever. They just trying to go ball. So I feel like, you have all of these different things right now. Obviously, it's a preseason. We're going to look at things and it's going to be a little bit different when the season starts. But right now, I just feel like it's a fresh air. I feel like in both divisions where you just got a lot of parity and people can get knocked off any week.
I just thought about something so random, and I'm sorry. Why wasn't Bubba defensive player of the year?
Oh my God!
What is up with the Bubba disrespect, y'all? Like he was better than Aubrey Miller last year. I mean, you can argue, Aubrey Miller, like Scotty said before. Aubrey was on the best defense in the SWAC, number one team in the SWAC. You can make the argument, best player in the best team. But Bubba, come on, y'all. Like, what was he, second in tackles in the whole FCS?
I think he led the FCS.
So here's the argument I've seen when it comes to Bubba Adams versus Cindyada Anderson from
White boy
Grambling.
versus black boy.
No.
That's what some people say.
We're trying. First of all, we rock with Bubba. Bubba rocks. First of all, his name's Colton. Okay, we got to make sure we emphasize that to the
Dr.
fans.
Colton.
Like when he's with us, he's Bubba. But when he goes home, he's Colton. You know, Colton Adams. Colton Adams went to media today, but Bubba was making all the tackles on the field. No, shout out to Bubba Adams, man, if he watches this. But one argument that I have, and I'll actually ask it in a question to you two. Who has better NFL projections between Sundiata Anderson and Colton Adams? That was one thing that was like part of the thing, at least from the other media people sides. The professional stock, the draft grades, whatever term you want to use.
So I know that Bubba is what we giving Bubba 6'1", 6 feet. What we saying about
around there, yeah.
230. What's up, that?
About a good size with a linebacker.
Injury problems in his past, that plays into, you take that stuff into account. I mean, he'll be an undersized linebacker in the NFL. I mean, I know we talk when it comes to NFL now, we talk about speed linebackers, sideline to sideline, every down kind of guys. It's not like the 2000s when you got Patrick Willis, 6'3", 250 sitting in the hole. You know, we got smaller guys now. So, I mean, if you're talking about size and just that alone, I agree. But I think when we're talking about who's producing, you can't argue Bubba's numbers.
Which is why, you know, I could see the argument, and I think I ultimately agree that maybe Bubba Adams should be Defensive Player of the Year in the SWAC, because let's also remember kind of an issue when it comes to college sports, especially football and basketball. You're trying to weigh somebody's production and greatness at the college level while also projecting their professional aspirations. We always talk about players, you know, the past, like Tim Tebow. Tim Tebow is a great example. Fantastic college player, one of the all-time greats in college ball. But when you talk about his professional projection, you know, people are talking about how he really wasn't going to last. And, you know, I feel like he still got a short end of the stick. But even with that, you know, maybe he didn't project well. Like, let's be honest. Like, I feel like that's at least part of it. Maybe not on the SWAC side with naming Cindy, you know, DPOY. But when you have a player that's great in college, I think Colton Adams is a way better college player than Cindyada Anderson. Way better. Head and shoulders better. And maybe that deserves to have a collegiate award for college performances. But when it comes to NFL projections, you know, maybe the argument is for Cindyada Anderson, who has more of the physical tools and intangibles you may want from an NFL defensive player.
You can't argue 6'5", 240.
You can't, but my biggest thing is these are SWAC awards. Like these aren't SWAC and slash NFL projection awards. These are SWAC awards. Like I understand, you know, all of these different variables, injuries. I mean, if we're going based on season for season, I don't really know how we argue injuries either, because when Bubba's healthy, Bubba's the best linebacker in SWAC. I don't care what anybody says.
What's the best ability, though? What's the best ability?
Availability. His last season, he was available, though.
Yeah.
That's what I'm saying. Like, we basing stuff off of 2 years ago. That don't matter. Because 2 years ago, we basing stuff off of 2 years ago. Jackson State's going to win every game. Right or wrong. We're not talking about 2 years ago. We're talking about this season. This season coming up and what happened last season. Last season, Bubba Adams deserved Defensive Player of the Year. This season, he deserved preseason Defensive Player of the Year. Point blank, period. Like, there shouldn't be any debate about this.
But do y'all feel like, to a degree, the SWAC conference disrespects Bubba?
Yes.
Where are you going with that? What do you mean about that?
I'm not going where you think we're going. I ain't going where y'all think we're going. But just the fact that he didn't win Defensive Player last year. This year he wasn't. What more can I do than almost lead the conference?
I'm trying to remember who won it last year. I'm trying to.
Aubrey Miller.
I ain't gonna lie. Aubrey Miller, best player on the best defense. Best player on the best defense.
in all honesty, exactly what Mason just
But
said.
he got embarrassed in Celebration Bowl.
It got to be team, but I think it got to be team though.
It's not the Celebration Bowl Defensive Player of the Year. It's the SWAC Defensive Player of the Year.
See,
You're the best player on the best defense.
See, that's crazy. That's crazy to me.
Sorry.
Now we're using my stuff. That's insane to me. But go off though. It's fine.
No,
go off.
I see the argument. I'm just saying I see the argument. I see why Colton Adams, aka Bubba, he should be the SWAC Defensive Player of the Year. I think he has the season to prove it. That's the beautiful part about preseason. This all could be wrong. All this could be absolutely wrong. Arkansas probably could go undefeated. They could win the Celebration Bowl. We don't know. Mississippi Valley could go 10-1.
Jesus.
Hey, chill out on them. Chill out on that.
But what about Keyshawn Johnson? We had another player disrespected too. We still talking about Bubba too, but Keyshawn Johnson didn't make nothing.
At wide receiver, that's right.
Yeah, he didn't make nothing.
Let's see, wide receiver.
But in other articles,
wait. These are the wide receivers that was taking over him. Jamari Shareed from Florida A&M, Derek Morton, Texas Southern. The second team was Lyndon Rash, Grambling State, and Marcus Riley, FAMU. So the two FAMU guys, Marcus Riley and Jamari Shareed. Willie Simmons talked about that actually at the press conference I attended. And this is what he basically said. He basically said Xavier Smith took away a lot of, catches from everybody. Not in a bad way. It's like when you have such a dominant receiver, some other people that are going to be as talented don't get that kind of shine.
Only one ball.
Only one ball. And Xavier Smith, they kind of force-fed him. They said it. They kind of force-fed him last year. So now you have two guys that are good. You've probably seen it on tape that they're good. You're going to give them the benefit of the doubt, at least when it comes to preseason. Derek Moore from Texas Southern, Andrew Body is probably number one target last year. And Andrew Body's going to be all SWAC second team. So I think it's probably an argument that. Now, who was the fourth guy you named? I can't.
Lyndon Rash from Grambling State.
That one might be a question mark because Calvez did not look good. I watched some of the tape from Grambling last year as I was doing my research for Media Day. Calvez was. I don't know. You could pick a wide receiver who played with a terrible quarterback. I'm gonna be honest with you, because unless
you're putting major stock in Miles Crowley, which I mean that's not indicative on these all SWAC teams, but that's the only way that I can think of it.
That's a whole lot of stock. Now that's a boy. You might that's Wolf of Wall Street kind of level stock right there. And
I'm not saying he's gonna be bad. He's gonna be good. But at the same time, it's like
I get what you're saying.
Keyshawn did the work though. That's my thing. And then we also talked about X. You talk about Xavier at FAMU.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, we had somebody at our school that was like that too. Jeremiah Hickson. Now, granted, he wasn't to X's caliber at least. He wasn't there. But still, when you talk about taking targets, when you talk about getting the majority of the throws and all of that, Jeremiah Hickson was that.
Mm-hmm.
And then when Levante Chenault was playing, those two were that. We went into last season talking about Jeremiah Hickson, Levante Chenault, and others. Basically. Basically, that's what we did.
Yeah.
Keyshawn Johnson came out of nowhere and he was balling.
I wouldn't say nowhere. I mean, he had been on
the thing I was trying to say.
I'll put it like this. When you say out of nowhere, if the only people that know you are inside the house, you're not really that known.
That's what I'm saying. Yeah, Keyshawn was showing off against a lot of different teams. I think even he had an okay game against UCLA too.
So here are the stats for Keyshawn. They don't have UCLA on here, but against he was 530 for 31 catches, 3 tutties. Again in the last game against UAPB, 7 for 126. FAMU 5 for 69, 1 touchdown. Madison Classic 4 for 31. Mississippi Valley 5 for 116. I mean, these aren't pedestrian numbers. You're talking about 300-yard games. Considering the fact that our play style
is running.
That's true too. Yeah, that's true too.
In the quarterback situation.
Do y'all think that might have played a part in the fact? Well, no, because like Kendall said, people are giving the Grambling receiver name credit, and they don't know. You're not for
Lyndon
sure.
Rash.
You're not for sure that Miles gonna be the starter. I mean, nothing been named by anybody. That's another
He's
storyline.
gonna be the starter.
Yeah, that man gonna be a
You
starter.
you
Ain't
look.
no way in the world you bring him.
You're not bringing Miles Crawley. Miles
Bring
Crawley.
him to the crib.
Miles
And then
Crawley
he
is
about
an
to be a
NIL.
starter.
Miles Crawley was at the Black College Football Hall of Fame off an NIL deal. That's why he was there. Like, for other reasons, I shouldn't out his business like that. But yeah, he was there. He was there because he was part of an NIL deal, which is fine. NIL is legal now. Good job, college kids. Proud of you. But at the same time, I think it's kind of tough. That's why let me land this plane by saying I agree with you. Like the two Florida A&M receivers, I can't take that. Xavier Smith, like you got to understand, like when you're good, you're good. It's almost like when you go back to Jackson State and look at the guys they have left at wide receiver there. Shane Hooks went to Auburn, but what about the guys under them? We know they're good, but they didn't get as much shine because Shane Hooks was there. Now you just kind of know. That's why I agree with the two you guys making it. Derek Bourne is honestly the number one option of the second best quarterback in the SWAC. And maybe the best quarterback in the SWAC by the time the season's over. Yes, I'm saying that now. But that Grambling receiver, I'm not sure. You might have it. I think there's a strong argument to put somebody else there.
So, Mason, that's another question that we have. You mentioned the fact that a lot of quarterbacks didn't go to SWAC Media Day. Do you make anything of that? I know me and Kendall talked about it before. What do you make of that? Is that coach is not trying to play their hand?
I think so. More. It may be to varying degrees for some people, because even so, I think Kendrick Wade talked about Jamari Jones being there, how even though he's there, he's not the foregone starter. He made sure to say that. And I think I sent out a clip where he said that. But most times when you bring your quarterback, he's probably because he's the guy. Or he's 90% sure he's the guy. So Andrew Body being there makes sense. I asked Coach Dooley about Harold Blood being there after, Bob McDowell and Bashawn McCray left. They're not there anymore. He's got confidence in him. So it shows. The quarterback battle at Alcorn State is going on. Even though Tyler Macon, I think, is going to be the inside track to be the starter. It makes sense for him to not be there. When you get Miles Crawley is an interesting case because I feel like we all are confident he's going to be the starter. But that defense, the guys they brought, let's remember, they just brought 2 all-SWAC first-team defensive players representing Grambling. I think that's a very fair reason to bring.
I'm pretty sure you said that. I'm pretty sure Coach Jackson said that.
Like
somewhere in there, I'm pretty sure you said something.
When you bring Lewis Matthews, who's also underrated. Now, shout out to Lewis Matthews because people really don't watch him, but he's actually really, really good, and he can do some things at that linebacker position. And then sending out Anderson, it shows. So I think when you think about that, and of course, the skill positions at UAPB. I mean, think about this. The roster's still kind of new. Skylar Perry was a starter last year for UAPB. He's now turned pro. So I think it's fair. That's why he wasn't there. Alabama A&M. I think
Xavier Langford. They still got question marks there too.
They got question marks because it's always kind of like an old adage, and I think Kendall may have heard it before being a former football player himself. When you have 2 quarterbacks, you really have no
quarterback. Yeah.
Like it's just. I think that's probably the issue there. They got to figure out who's going to be the starter for them. You cannot go into next year doing the in and out kind of game.
Because you got 3 right now. What is it? Quincy Casey, Xavier Langford, Quad Brown. I believe they got somebody else in there too, if I'm not mistaken. But you got 3. And when we were at the Classic, Quincy Casey looked really good.
He may look good, but then you have another guy where Xavier Langford looks good. And that's another thing about football. We talk about taking advantage of opportunities, but sports is about rhythm too. If I get in the rhythm and I go 5 for 10, that's cool. But then if I have like a bad stretch in the middle of the second quarter, you yank me, and I don't play again until the third because you sat me for the rest of the quarter and halftime. Now I'm out of rhythm. Whatever rhythm I had in the first is gone. And
we saw that when you talk about consistency and rhythm. We saw that a couple years ago with Alabama State. When we had Ryan Nettles, when we had Miles Crawley and Joe, what was my man's last name? You remember?
Dang, I forgot about Joe.
Dang,
Joe Schmo.
That was my dude.
Nah, Joe was tough. But those
Joe Owens.
Joe Owens. So those 3, we had those 3, and literally there were certain games where one would look great, but then maybe an injury would sideline him, or they would just get taken out. Like, it was so much turnover that you really couldn't get any rhythm. And to be honest, that type of thing kind of led into the next season too with Demetrius and Miles. When you talk about, just having having a quarterback that you know is going to be there, also building rapport with your receivers. I don't care what anybody says. Building a rapport with your receivers is important because building rapport with your receivers is the difference between a 10-yard slant and a 12-yard slant. Like if you have a guy that runs a route a certain way, as a quarterback, you have to know how he runs that route. Because if he changes it up, he's going to run it differently than other guys.
The relationship between, you're right. The
just having that relationship is important. So going back to what you were talking about earlier, Khalil, as far as just like who bringing a quarterback and who didn't. To me personally, I'm gonna go the Grambling route. I'm gonna bring guys that have actually contributed to my team, that are some of the best players in the SWAC, but also the best players on my team. So I'm gonna bring my 2 defensive players, and that's a bonus. I get to keep people guessing about who's gonna be my quarterback, even though we know, but I'm gonna keep them guessing.
Like it kind of goes to show. Now, one storyline I do want to bring out in terms of Alabama State specifically, and I've talked to you guys about this yesterday. Juwan Howell. We all thought it was cool, the Earth, Wind, and Fire backfield they tried to do last year. We've seen the potential it could have. It just didn't work out like that. Eddie Robinson said, and I quote, "I had to apologize to Juwan Howell last year, but that's not going to be the case this year." And I think he really means that, with Ja'Cory Merritt transferring to New Mexico State. I think Santo done he graduated or he graduated.
He was a grad transfer when he came.
But he was done after that. So I think Juwan Howell now has his chance to shine. He's excited. He's ready to kind of be RB1. And it was to the point, and I'm pretty sure you guys know, people were saying in-house, give Juwan the ball. Give him the ball. Other players are saying it. Maybe defensive coaches were saying it. Give Juwan the ball. But no, it was always Merritt. And maybe because Merritt's the name. Merritt, was supposed to be the guy or whatever. It didn't work out. It didn't work out. People are saying behind, internal, like, hey, give Juwan the ball more. That's not fair. So at the end of the day, let's, I'm looking forward to see what Juwan Howell does being RB1. Now with great power comes great expectations. You are now the RB1. There is no Santo Dunn or Ja'Cory Merritt to block the damage if the running game is not good again. It's going to be you first. It may be somebody else second, but it's going to be you first. So I think it's going to be one thing we talk about. So I was wanting to hear your thoughts about that, about him being RB1.
So I Kendall, I was of the mindset that we needed Juwan. If you go back and watch that Texas Southern game last year, he single-handedly, along with a couple plays, passes from DD, his ability to power. He's, I think he's more of a powerful downhill running back than Ja'Cory. Ja'Cory can be powerful, but I think Ja'Cory sometimes he's not great at hitting the hole, right? Sometimes he can miss the hole or he can tiptoe. But Juwan is, hey, I'm going to put my head down and I'm going, almost like the Ezekiel Elliott, Tony Pollard type deal. Now, Santo Dunn was more like Tony Pollard. That's your speed back. That's your screen. That's the guy I'm going to dump out to a screen. We only saw Ja'Cory have really, Kendall, one great game last year. That was with Prairie View.
I think it was against
That
Prairie
was
View.
his huge game. And I was, with Ezra being gone, I thought Ja'Cory was going to take that next step. Okay, now I'm really in here. Let's do this. Because he did his first year without Ezra. When Ezra was in and out of the lineup, he was injured in 2021. Ja'Cory he did good. And I thought he was going to build on that. But, for one reason or another, whether it was the offensive line or the quarterback situation, it didn't amount to anything this year.
I mean, I think one other factor that we have to put into account is that he was coming off of injury. That was one of my biggest things. I mean, to me, he really never looked as healthy as he probably should have been, because he was rehabbing pretty much the whole summer.
Had knee surgery.
He was trying to get himself back, but then as soon as you get yourself back, boom, you're in the season. So he didn't. To me personally, he didn't really get himself healthy enough to really show what he had. I think one of the things, and this is all depending on how you feel about a coach's decision, but I think Coach Robinson from day one was Ja'Cory is our guy. I have a lot of faith in Ja'Cory.
He thought he was an NFL talent.
And so because of that, I think Ja'Cory did get more touches than maybe he should have in certain situations because of the amount of faith that Coach Robinson had in him. Because sometimes it depends on the person, but grown men don't just apologize on a regular. just because. I think it takes a lot not only for him to apologize to him personally, but to him to apologize in front of media as well.
That's an apology to the team too. That's not just to Jawan. That's an apology to the team.
For sure. And I think as a first year coach, you're going to learn those type of things. Those type of things are expected, and I think that it's a good thing that he realized that he recognized it, and that's something that he's looking to change. But I think if he has a fraction of the amount of faith that he had in Ja'Cory last year that he has in Jawan this year, I think Jawan's gonna get the carries that he needs to produce. Now it's just up to Jawan to produce, which I think he can do.
And you like his play style.
Oh yeah, I love his play style. I think you're muted, bro.
Mason, you're muted. You're muted.
Yeah.
You're muted.
Oh.
I ain't know if
we got
Mike 1-2-1-2. Y'all can hear me now?
Yeah.
You straight.
My bad, man. It's been crazy around here. But accountability. At the end of the day, if your head coach can admit that he's wrong about something, that shows that no one else is above being corrected. Like if he's willing to admit on camera saying, hey, that was my wrong decision to not give Jawan Howard the ball more. That shows accountability for everybody else to say, hey, this is the tone you want to set. And he's a year 2 coach. I think it's a big deal. And of course, I'll include in my takeaways, the year 2 things he wants to change. But I think it's a big deal that, if you want to be a running football team, you got to have a running back to be a running football team. So I think he's going to be looking really good for that. And quarterback battle, I'm not really interested in that, to be honest with you. It's going to eventually shake out to what it is. If D. Davis steps up and how he needs to, he's going to step and be the QB1 because he's already been in the locker room. It's hard for a transfer guy to uproot the incumbent unless the incumbent is just really, really, really bad. I don't think.
And I also think going off of what you just said, I also think God forbid there is some type of injury in the quarterback room. I truly do believe that having a QB2 that fits the playing style of your QB1 is going to pay dividends if there is an injury, because now you don't have to change the whole offense up like they had to do last year when Miles would come in for DD. So I feel like those type of things are definitely going to make a difference for Bama State as a whole. And I feel like if they can be healthy, their offensive line will be better. Outside of the injuries, I feel
Robert Austin made the first team, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah, we've had like 2 or 3 guys, in certain lists or whatever that have been on, tops of their positions, top 10s of their positions. I think they have the full capabilities of doing that. They just got to be healthy.
I think that's really about it on my end in terms of storylines. I think it's a couple of things to watch for other teams. I think PJ Dozier, the linebacker from Pine Bluff, is going to be big. I like Aaron Webb. I like how Mississippi Valley's kind of changed up their athletic department. As I told y'all yesterday, they've hired at least 4 new coaches and 2 administrative staff in like the past 6 months.
Shout out to Coach Snap.
Yeah,
Snap, we're gonna miss you, man. But we're happy that you got a head coaching job.
But he deserved it for sure. He definitely deserved it. So congratulations.
I think that's a big deal when you're talking about athletic department, especially in Mississippi Valley. It's kind of funny when it comes to Valley because people who don't know football would think Valley has always been bad, when really Valley used to be the standard when it came to NFL products and top-notch football. Mississippi Valley owns a lot of records.
Yep.
People really know that. Mississippi Valley owns a lot of records for passing yards and things like that between Satellite, Totten, Jerry Rice, and and others in the 80s. So I think it's a really good sign they're trying to have a new era of success in Itabena. I'm excited to see what they do down there. But it's been a pleasure talking to the new generation of Alabama State media. Man.
Absolutely, man. Absolutely. But can you do us one favor before you leave?
Mm-hmm.
You're one of the first guests that we've had on the show.
One of the first guests.
Oh, you are the first guest. My fault. I'm sorry.
The first? Really?
So,
am I really the first guest?
Yeah. So
I thought y'all had other people on the show before. Like
we've been on other people's shows. This is our first one. Yeah. Wow. So we just wanted to give you the floor though. Let you tell everybody what you do. What stuff you got coming up and all of that. So,
man,
floor is yours.
And thank you guys so much. My name is Mason Smith, that y'all see at the bottom of the screen. I am a reporter for HBCU Legends, which is a part of Sports Illustrated's Fan Nation. I'm a proud Alabama State alum. I was the former sports editor of the school paper, the Hornet Tribune, and now I'm on trying to bring the best HBCU athletics coverage I can to the fans out there. So you can follow me on Twitter, Mason_Smith. You can follow me on Instagram, Mason_the-word-Smith. So at the end of the day, thank you guys so much. Thank you, Kendall. I have thank you, Khalil. Don't mean to leave you back, man. But I have a SWAC Media Day takeaways coming up. I got some other stories coming up from that as well. I got another big story about an NFL player from Morgan State, who just recently signed a UDFA. So I'm excited, man. I think it's gonna be a great opportunity. Thank you guys so much, and I appreciate the support. Shout out to the wild card.
Hey man, for sure, bro.
We gotta do some more of these. We gotta bring him back
Absolutely. You definitely gonna be on here again, for sure, man. But we definitely appreciate you showing up and showing out. And congratulations on everything you've accomplished so far. We can't wait to see what else you accomplish.
Facts.
Thank you, guys. Thank you so much.
As usual, if you stay to the end of this episode and watch the full entirety, we thank you because it was a long one, but we appreciate you. Like, comment, subscribe, donate to the Cash App. Kendall, we gotta make a commercial for this Cash App thing. But donate to the Cash App and keep coming back, and we got more content coming soon. Football season right around the corner, and we are going to be tapped in. Thank y'all.
Yes, sir. Thank y'all.